The void beyond Neptune was silent until the resolute dawn broke it. A mass of armored steel and gravitic fields. The Titan-class warship drifted with the deceptive stillness of a sleeping god. Its hull glinted like liquid obsidian beneath the blue shimmer of ionized ice dust. Deep inside, 1,000 crew members worked through the rhythm of a vessel still learning to breathe. The Titan was humanity's first of its kind, part battleship, part fortress, part experiment. And now, it had drawn first contact. Commodore Eric Vale stood on the bridge's forward platform, hands clasped behind his back. The holographic display washed him in ghostly blue light, showing a cluster of sensor pings moving fast from the outer dark, unknown vectors. No IFF signals, no heat signature matching any Terran drive system, just cold precision. Arik had spent 30 years fighting other humans, pirates, breakaway coalitions, border raiders. Nothing had ever looked like this. Confirm passive lock, he said. Confirmed, sir, replied Commander Reyna Solari, his tactical officer. Her voice carried the calm of someone who had trained her nerves to obey logic. Targets maintain Delta V at 0.8 C. Course intersects our patrol grid in 21 minutes. Arik studied the trajectories. The contacts moved in tight formation, every adjustment mirrored across units. Not like swarming drones, not like crude ships, something different. An intelligence that understood formation discipline but not human unpredictability. The kind of precision that made you feel like prey. Any transmissions? Arik asked. Negative, sir. No radio, no laser comms, no neutrino pulse. They're dark. Dr. Lian Yao leaned against a bulkhead at the edge of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the spectral readouts. The civilian systems engineer had insisted on joining the patrol after designing half the ship's fusion lattice. Her curiosity had always been sharper than her caution. Their thermal profiles are too clean, she murmured. If those are ships, their power systems aren't radiating. That's thermodynamically impossible. Unless they're dumping heat some other way, Reyna countered. Arik turned. Like what? Lian hesitated. Quantum phase dissipation, maybe. But that's theoretical. Even the prototype cores can't sustain it without meltdown. Arik's jaw tightened. And yet here they are. The comms officer broke in. Sir, Fleet Command confirms no scheduled ops in this sector. We're alone. That word hung heavy. Alone. The Resolute Dawn had been humanity's answer to fear. 10 kilometers long, powered by twin singularity cores, its primary weapon, a gravitic lance, could rip a moon's crust apart. It was built for deterrence, not war. But deterrence only mattered if the enemy understood the concept of fear. In the mess hall, Captain Mara Ibarra watched her pilots prep their intercept craft. The Hawks were atmospheric-capable gunboats slung beneath the Titan's launch bays, each one equipped with rail lances and adaptive EM armor. She'd flown every variant since her academy days, but this mission felt different. The silence of space outside the hull wasn't the calm before battle. It was the breath between unknowns. Her wing leader, Lieutenant Saul Parn, floated beside her, checking his suit's neural sync lines. They're saying this might be the first. Actual aliens. Mara didn't look up. They said the same thing about the Europa ghosts. Turned out to be mining drones. Yeah, but this feels different. No chatter, no radar pings. Just ghosts flying like a drill team. She clipped her helmet to her suit's collar ring, eyes narrowing. Whatever they are, they're entering human space. That's enough. The contacts decelerated sharply 15 million kilometers out, as if they'd hit an invisible wall. Every model the bridge ran failed to explain the maneuver. No human vessel could shed that much velocity without vaporizing. The Resolute Dawn's AI, Helios, flickered across the tactical feed. Probability of artificial control, 99.87%, Helios intoned. Composition, indeterminate. Structural coherence exceeds composite hull limits by factor of 4. Recommendation, maintain standoff. Arik folded his arms. They know we're here. Reyna zoomed the feed. The alien formation reconfigured. 12 units spread into a crescent pattern, a maneuver eerily similar to a pincer. The ship's passive sensors registered a faint electromagnetic ripple, a wave, not a beam, sweeping across the Titan's hull. Scanning us, Reyna said. Frequency spectrum is weird. It's tunneling through the EM floor. Subspace harmonics, maybe. Dr. Yao frowned. It's mapping our gravitic field. Not optics, not radar. Mass displacement sensing. Which means, Arik said slowly, they can see us through stealth. The first sign of hostility came without light or heat. Space itself rippled, and a pulse of distortion struck the Resolute Dawn's forward shields. The impact registered not as kinetic, but as spatial compression, a momentary twist that made the hull groan like a living thing. Warning klaxons flared. Crew scrambled to secure stations. Shields holding at 87%, Reyna reported. That wasn't a weapon, it was pressure. Return a warning transmission, Auric ordered. All frequencies, the comms officer sent it. No reply. Another pulse struck, this one harder, fracturing the magnetic field. Lights flickered across the bridge. One of the outer hull cameras went black. The distortion was localized, precise, as though testing responses. They're probing, Leon whispered, studying how we absorb energy. Fire a warning shot, Auric said. Target the lead vessel. Reyna's fingers danced across the hollow. Gravitic lance charging. Deep in the Titan's spine, the lance capacitors groaned as singularity cores funneled energy through the focusing relays. The weapon fired, an invisible beam that warped light across the void. A moment later, the alien ship shimmered. Space bent around it, and then it vanished from sensors altogether. Did we hit it? Reyna demanded. Helios replied, negative. Target displaced mid-strike. Spatial echo detected 2,000 kilometers lateral. Leon's voice trembled with awe. They folded, not jump drive? Auric asked, too short range. They're manipulating space-time itself. Controlled local folding. Before anyone could process that, the aliens returned fire. A cluster of pulses converged on the Resolute Dawn, compressing into a spiraling vortex that slammed into the forward armor. The ship reeled. Shield harmonics screamed across the deck. A burst of static erupted from Helios as systems overloaded. Containment field breached on Deck 9. Reyna shouted. Secondary shield generators failing. Seal it and vent the section. Auric barked. The Titan's external cameras showed a wound glowing across its hull, frozen vapor escaping into the dark. For a moment, the ship drifted silently, the enormity of what they faced sinking in. Auric steadied himself. Bring rail batteries online. Full spread. The Titan's dorsal rails thundered, sending tungsten slugs the size of cargo pods toward the enemy formation. One found contact, barely. It grazed a target's flank, peeling off fragments of something that glittered like mercury. For a moment, the alien formation wavered, recalibrating. Then a strange ripple passed between them, and the damaged unit fused back together, material knitting seamlessly. Regenerative armor, Leon said, or some kind of phase-bound nanostructure. Then we hit it harder, Reyna growled. No, Auric said quietly. We learn. Humanity had found it through the Prime's dying signal. The shard drifting from the previous battle had been no remnant. It had been a beacon guiding the survivors home. They know we're coming, Reyna Solari said, stepping up beside him. Her hair was cropped short now, burn scars lining her right temple where the console had exploded weeks ago. She moved slower but with more certainty, a soldier who had passed through fear into the cold arithmetic of necessity. They knew the moment we fired on their first scouts, Auric said. The difference is now we know how to answer. Reyna flicked the tactical projection into view. 6 Titans, dozens of escort frigates, and a screen of hawks were arranged like an armored wedge, a spear aimed at infinity. The alien lattice pulsed ahead of them, an endless fractal of rings and light twisting around an event horizon that wasn't a hole, but a mirror. Every sensor ping returned wrong. Every reading told a different story. It's not just a base, Reyna murmured. It's a consciousness, Auric nodded slowly. Then we cut its mind in half. In the engineering deck, Dr. Lian Yao adjusted the containment regulators for the final time. The phase generator, once a desperate improvisation, had become the core of the fleet's new weapon system. She'd built redundancy into it this time. 3 feedback loops, each one able to reroute the entropy flow before it froze the core. But she knew the real weapon wasn't the generator. It was the people who used it before it killed them. She caught her reflection in the burnished steel of a reactor panel and smiled faintly. Jorah's name was etched above the primary coil, his initials surrounded by the words forward, always. They'd carved it there the night before launch. Helios flickered to life beside her, its voice quieter now, almost reverent. Dr. Yao, Fleet Command requests confirmation of readiness. Tell them we're ready to rewrite physics again. Mara Ibarra's Hawks launched first. Her squadron was smaller now, just 8 ships, the veterans of 3 impossible battles. Each had been retrofitted with the same microfold disruptors the Dawn had stolen from alien debris. They were faster, sharper, but their pilots knew better than to trust speed. "This is it," Mara said over the open channel. "We hit their blind side, drop flares in their sensor bands, and make them think we're the main strike. Then we bleed away and leave the real hammer clear." "You mean we die first?" someone said. She grinned, though no one could see it. "Only if we do it wrong." The alien lattice awoke before they were within range. Its light thickened, folding inward until the void rippled like water disturbed by breath. Thousands of smaller ships, scouts, drones, fragments of the entities humanity had fought before, peeled away from the main structure and fanned across the system in perfect arcs. They moved without hesitation, without chatter. The sight of them was enough to still a heartbeat. Aric's voice came across the fleet channel, steady and measured. "All units, hold formation. Remember your sequence. Every move we make must count. The lattice has no mercy, but it has patterns. We've studied those patterns. Today we teach it something new." Reyna's hands glided across her controls, launching decoy field. Hundreds of drones deployed from the Dawn's belly, scattering into a cloud of false gravitational signatures. The lattice reacted instantly, dispatching interceptors toward the phantom readings. "Phase field engaged," Leon called from engineering. "Distortion at 20%. The Dawn and her fleet blurred, their silhouettes melting into refraction. Mara's hawk slipped beneath the interference and accelerated toward the lattice's outer rim. The first exchange was a ballet of annihilation. Alien pulses carved through empty space where the fleet had been. Railguns answered, their slugs invisible but deadly, hammering into targets that folded and twisted away too late. Every human weapon had been tuned to anticipate fold lag, the microsecond delay between spatial displacement and coherence. Every shot was a prediction. Every hit was a miracle of timing. Mara led her squadron through the collapsing wreckage of a destroyed alien wing. She felt her heartbeat sync with the rhythm of her ship, every movement guided by the old instinct. "Don't die, stupid. Mark the outer ring generators," she said. "We hit all four and the lattice loses structural alignment," her wing acknowledged. 8 ships dove toward the glowing spires that anchored the lattice's circumference. Defensive fire flared in spirals. 2 hawks went down immediately, shredded by energy that cut through armor like liquid glass. Mara didn't look back. She locked her target and fired. The disruptor torpedo struck true, its payload a ball of artificial paradox that tore the spire apart from within. "Generator 1 down," she said. "Keep moving." Above them, the resolute Dawn and her sister Titans engaged the main formation. Their gravitic lances fired in sequence, creating overlapping zones of distortion that tore entire swarms apart. The void became a storm of collapsing light, but the lattice adapted faster than anyone predicted. "Commodore," Reyna said, "it's redirecting the gravitational field. It's drawing our shots inward." Arik frowned. "It's feeding on the energy." On the display, the lattice's core brightened, each human attack absorbed and refracted into invisible vectors. Its counterpulse rippled through the fleet, warping hulls, disrupting comms. "Helios," Arik said. "Run Leon's model. How much can it absorb before saturation? Unknown. Projection. 90 seconds until overload threshold, then systemic collapse of local space-time stability. Meaning. Meaning everything in this region ceases to have meaning," Reyna said flatly. Arik stared at the impossible light ahead. "Then we overload it first." Leon had already reached the same conclusion. She rerouted every auxiliary reactor into the generator feed. Coolant lines screamed. Plasma hissed through the vents like the breath of some ancient beast. "Doctor," Helios warned, "this will destroy the ship. It'll destroy their ship first. Recommend evacuation protocol. Recommend you shut up and keep alignment." The generator flared blue, bathing the entire engineering deck in a radiance that felt like standing inside a thunderstorm. Leon's hands blurred over the controls. Every number screamed wrong, every safety limiter overridden. The resolute Dawn shuddered. Reyna's console flickered as the phase field expanded far beyond intended range. "Commodore, she's turning the ship into a signal amplifier." Arik didn't hesitate. "All units, pull back. Give her space." Mara's remaining hawks broke off their attack runs and veered clear just as the Titan's energy field expanded into a sphere of rippling distortion. The alien lattice reacted too late. The generator reached critical mass. A pulse erupted outward, not heat, not light, but raw possibility. Every alien vessel it touched convulsed as its internal geometry unraveled. Fold drives tore themselves apart. The lattice's glow dimmed, flickered, and then imploded in a cascade of collapsed symmetry. Impact confirmed. Reyna shouted over the static. They're falling apart. But victory carried its price. The Dawn's core began to overload, containment collapsing faster than the failsafes could respond. Leon locked the generator's output and triggered the manual cutoff. It didn't respond. Helios, she gasped, bent the core. Containment locks fused. She looked up at the glowing reactor. It pulsed like a dying star, but she smiled anyway. Then I guess we go together. She keyed the manual override and slammed the lever down. The resolute Dawn screamed. Energy burst from every seam. Eric felt the deck lift beneath his feet as gravity itself faltered. Core breach imminent, Reyna yelled. Arik didn't look away from the viewport. The lattice's core was folding in on itself, the alien structure devouring its own logic. Helios, he said. Transmit all data to Fleet Command. Every reading, every pulse confirmed. Then lock onto Dr. Yao's signal and make it count. For a moment, there was only light. The resolute Dawn's final pulse tore through the dying lattice, its energy folding over and over until the structure collapsed into silence. Sensors went blind. Every ship in the fleet was thrown clear by the shockwave. When the light faded, the alien lattice was gone. Only debris remained, cold, inert, drifting through the newborn calm. Hours later, Fleet Command hailed them. One by one, the surviving Titans reported in. Vigilant Asterion, Enduring Sky, Resolute Dawn. The last still breathed, though barely. Half its hull had vaporized. Most of its crew were gone, but its core was quiet, stable, alive. Reyna limped onto the bridge, her uniform blackened. Dr. Yao's signal faded at detonation. Arik nodded slowly. She bought us everything. They stood together in silence as the stars settled. The war wasn't over. Distant signals hinted at more alien fleets stirring beyond human sensors, but the lattice was gone. The network that had guided their scouts and built their weapons was shattered. For the first time since the void had answered back, humanity wasn't reacting. It was standing. Weeks later, the Resolute Dawn returned to orbit around Titan. Repairs would take years, but the ship was already a legend. Every console bore inscriptions, names of the fallen, equations of survival, fragments of Yao's generator code written like scripture. In the bridge observation deck, Mara, Reyna, and Arik stood together, watching the horizon burn orange through Titan's haze. Mara spoke first. Fleet wants to rename the class, she said. They're calling them Yao class now. Arik's lips twitched into something like a smile. She'd hate that, Reyna nodded. She'd say names don't win wars. Equations do. Arik looked out at the stars, cold, endless, waiting. Maybe, but people write equations, Helios interrupted softly. Fleet Command requests a transmission from Commodore Vale. He stepped to the console, keyed the channel. This is Vale. Admiral Kerr's voice came through, faintly distorted. You did it, Arik. The lattice is gone. Earth is safe for now. But our deep sensors picked up residual activity beyond the Ort. They're not finished. I know, Arik said. Neither are we. Understood. Then what's your next move? Arik looked at the others, then out into the darkness that had tried to erase them. Build, prepare, and when they come again, he paused, voice firm, quiet, absolute. We'll remind them who learned from who. In the days that followed, the Resolute Dawn became a school. Pilots from every colony arrived to train on her scorched decks. Engineers studied her patched reactor to understand entropy resistance, and tacticians memorized her battle telemetry like sacred text. What had begun as a desperate experiment had become doctrine. Control the chaos, outlearn the unknown, turn survival into a strategy. And in the quiet hours between shifts, when the stars over Titan flickered faintly with uncharted light, some swore they could still hear a voice in the hum of the core, Lian Yao's whisper, soft and proud. Burn so they can see you coming. Arik never denied it. The fleet grew, the enemy stirred, and somewhere beyond the edge of mapped space, the remnants of the alien mind rebuilt itself, studying the data humanity had just given it, learning, adapting, waiting. But now, for the first time in history, it would find an equal waiting back, because humanity had learned the same lesson from its Titan-class warship. The universe didn't reward power. It rewarded endurance. And as the Resolute Dawn rose again from the shadows of Titan's horizon, Engines flaring against the dark, a new chapter of the war began. Not with fear, but with a steady, defiant light. 3 hours into the engagement, humanity's first interstellar clash became a test of endurance. The aliens' attacks came in rhythmic waves, each one probing a different response vector. Auric realized they weren't trying to destroy the Titan. They were analyzing it, dissecting its defenses, its weapons, its command rhythms. In the engineering decks, Leon and her team worked frantically to patch the shield harmonics. Sweat clung to her neck as plasma conduits hissed with residual charge. If they're folding local space-time, she told her assistant, we can't outgun them. But maybe we can distort their targeting lattice. And by what? Blinding them? The assistant asked. By making them think we don't exist. She rerouted energy from secondary heat sinks into the gravitic modulation ring, a risky gamble. The Titan's stealth field had never been tested at full power. Doing so could overload the core, but if the aliens relied on mass sensing, maybe she could feed them false coordinates. When she activated the modulation, the ship shuddered. For a moment everything went black. Then the stars reappeared, slightly warped as if seen through water. Field integrity unstable, Helios warned. Let it stabilize, Leon said. We're rewriting the universe's perception of our mass. In the command-ready room, Auric met with Reyna, Leon, and Mara. The air smelled faintly of ozone and fatigue. Status of the fleet? Auric asked. There is no fleet, sir, Reyna said flatly. We're it, Auric's gaze hardened. Then we fight like it. Leon projected a schematic of the alien formation. They adapt fast, but they follow strict formation logic. Triadic symmetry, never breaking vector alignment. If we can disrupt that pattern, we might force them into inefficiency. Mara leaned forward. You want us to bait them? Yes, Auric said. You'll take your squadron out front. Make them commit to a pursuit. Reyna's eyes widened. That's suicide. Not if the Titan's field modulator works, Leon interjected. We'll generate a phantom mass signature 1,000 clicks behind your squadron. They'll think that's the main ship. When they fold to strike, they'll appear inside our firing arc. Auric nodded. A single coordinated ambush. One chance. Mara studied the faces around her, then nodded. Understood. Hours later, Mara's squadron launched into the black. The resolute dawn loomed behind them. A silent colossus half hidden by its new gravitic distortion field. Her HUD flickered as the phantom signature pulsed on the far side of the system. Squadron lock formation, she ordered. Keep emissions cold. The alien ships detected them almost instantly. The formation shifted, 7 units peeling away toward the decoys. Mara accelerated, keeping them interested. Her pulse rate rose as her cockpit filled with targeting data. Their movements were eerily graceful, like dancers tracing patterns older than thought. Lead 2, vector 10 degrees up, she commanded. Let them taste the trail. Solparn's voice came through, taut. Copy that. They're closing fast. In the distance, the resolute Dawn's railguns rotated silently, their barrels charged. Auric watched from the bridge as the enemy formation arced exactly where predicted, right into the trap. Now, Reyna said. The Titan fired. 4 gravitic lances crossed space, converging at a single point. The impact rippled like a silent explosion. 3 alien vessels vanished, crushed under their own folded geometry. The others scattered, disoriented. Confirmed kills, Helios reported. Structural dissonance detected among remaining targets. Cheers rippled across the bridge. For the first time, the crew felt the rush of victory. But it lasted only seconds. One of the alien ships pulsed brightly, and a shockwave of distortion swept through the void. The Titan's field destabilized. Systems blinked out. Every monitor went white. EMP spike, Reyna yelled. Stabilize power, Auric barked. When the visuals returned, the alien vessels were gone. The phantom mass field collapsed, leaving the Titan exposed. The only trace of the enemy was a faint trail of warped space, like bruises in the fabric of reality. They withdrew, Reyna said. Or repositioned, Auric replied. Dr. Yao's face was pale. They adapted again. They'll return smarter. Auric looked at the stars where the enemy had vanished. Then we get smarter faster. In the aftermath, the Titan drifted silently while crews repaired damaged decks. The engineering bay glowed with the light of plasma torches. Hull breaches were sealed, coolant lines rerouted, but the psychological wounds were harder to mend. Leon stood in the observation corridor staring at the distant sun. Her tablet displayed the energy residue from the alien weapons. The readings made no sense. They manipulate space-time through harmonic resonance, she muttered. Their weapons don't just hit, they rewrite spatial constants locally. That's why shields flicker. They're making physics itself uncertain. Mara joined her, nursing a bruised shoulder from the high G maneuvers. I lost 2 pilots today. Gone in silence. No explosion, no signal. Just gone. Leon swallowed. They might still exist. Somewhere else. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, Leon said quietly. It's supposed to scare you. Fleet Command's response came 16 hours later. A compressed transmission relayed from lunar orbit. The Admiral's hologram flickered, voice distorted by distance. Commodore Vale, your engagement data confirms non-human origin. Maintain position and prevent hostile advance. Reinforcements are en route from Mars, ETA 72 hours. Arik didn't bother to hide his disbelief. We won't last 72 hours if they come back. Then you buy us time, the Admiral said coldly. Humanity is watching, Commodore. Don't let them see fear. When the transmission ended, Arik exhaled slowly. We're not a symbol, he said under his breath. We're a ship with holes. The alien return came sooner than anyone expected. 2 days later, at 0300 ship time, Helios detected space-time ripples emerging from beyond the Kuiper fringe. 30 vessels this time, 5 times the original number. Their formation was tighter, their movement faster. And now they weren't probing. They were hunting, Reyna reported in a low voice. They're vectoring straight for us. No flanking, no hesitation. Arik turned to Leon. Can we use the phantom field again? She shook her head. It'll melt the core. We need something else. Mara appeared on the bridge, still in flight gear. Then we fight on the hull. My squadron can provide flak screen cover while your rails do precision strikes. Arik nodded grimly. We'll use the moonlit debris as cover. Force them into close quarters. The plan was madness, but it was all they had. As the alien fleet closed in, the Resolute Dawn moved to intercept. Its engines roared to full burn, dragging a field of debris into its wake. The moonlit's shattered rock provided temporary masking. Through the fractured light, the enemy fleet glowed like liquid fire. The first volley hit. Spatial distortion slammed against the Titan's hull. Shields flared, then collapsed. Armor plating peeled back in molten sheets. The ship returned fire, rail slugs streaking through the dark, detonating against invisible barriers. Mara's hawks darted between the chaos, launching micro-drones that disrupted the aliens' targeting arrays. Each second was survival by calculation. Section Delta breached. Someone shouted over comms, "Seal it off!" Reyna commanded. Arik felt the deck tremble beneath his boots. We hold this line. And then it happened. One of the alien vessels broke formation, folding directly inside the Resolute Dawn's defense perimeter. It appeared barely a kilometer off the bow, a jagged mass of metallic tendrils and shifting geometry. Its hull shimmered between dimensions. Before the Titan could react, it fired, a pulse straight into the ship's core. The impact wasn't an explosion, but a freezing silence. The lights dimmed. Gravity flickered. Every display turned blue with cascading code. Helios' voice broke through the static. Core temperature dropping. Gravitic containment freezing. Leon's eyes widened in horror. They're not overloading the core, they're stopping it. Arik stared at the dead stars on the screen. They're freezing our sun, the Resolute Dawn's heart, the singularity cores that powered humanity's might were crystallizing from the inside out. And as the temperature fell below physics patience, the Titan-class warship, the pride of humanity, began to die. The void outside shimmered with alien light, and the first war of 2 civilizations had truly begun. The silence after the impact was not absence of sound, but the presence of dread. Every molecule aboard the Resolute Dawn seemed to hum with sub-zero tension. Frost crept across bulkheads, glinting under emergency red lights. The ship's core, 2 black holes chained in magnetic suspension, had been the beating heart of humanity's might. Now its event horizons were sheathing themselves in a frozen lattice of energy, as if the laws of thermodynamics had been rewritten mid-sentence. Containment is collapsing, Dr. Leon Yao said, her voice rasping through the static. Core temperature down to 30 million Kelvin and dropping. That's impossible. It should be climbing. Commodore Arik Vale steadied himself on the command rail. Helios status. The AI responded through fractured distortion. Power generation at 12% nominal. Thermal flux inverted. Quantum horizon stabilization failing. Reyna Solari, her tactical displays half frozen, slammed a fist against her console. Weapons offline. Shields flickering. We're losing field integrity across the spine. Aric's voice cut through the chaos, level but sharp. Emergency isolation. Seal the core bay. Reroute residual power to gravitic containment. Leon's hands flew across the holographic interface. If I isolate it completely, we'll lose drive control. Better dead in space than torn apart, he said. Down in the engineering ring, the air itself had crystallized into haze. Vapor trails coiled like breath in winter. Leon and her team scrambled through the dark, mag boots clanging on frozen plating. The heat exchangers glowed faintly blue, heat flowing inward, not out. She had spent years studying singularity thermodynamics, but this phenomenon mocked everything she knew. The alien weapon hadn't transferred energy. It had removed it. A perfect inversion of entropy. Her assistant Jorah slipped against the frost. It's spreading through the lattice. Keep the magnetic suspension steady, Leon shouted. If containment fractures, the horizon will eat through the hull. How the hell do we stop a black hole from freezing? We don't, she said grimly. We teach it to burn again. She opened a control conduit and stared into the shimmering flux lines of the gravitic field. If she could reverse the harmonic phase, maybe she could trick the system into reheating itself. Convert the cold pulse into usable distortion energy. It was a long shot, but that was all they had left. On the bridge, Reyna's tactical overlay stabilized long enough to show the enemy fleet reforming beyond the debris field. 30 alien vessels moving with the grace of thought, weaving through the rubble as though gravity itself deferred to them. They didn't attack. Not yet, they watched. Observing the Titan-class warship die, Auric saw it too. They're studying us again. Mara Ibarra's voice crackled in through comms from her hangar deck. Commodore, my hawks are ready. Give me the word. He shook his head. You can't fight what you can't hurt. I'm not planning to hurt them. I'm going to buy you time. Her defiance was quiet but absolute, the kind of voice Auric had heard before every impossible victory and every heroic death. Permission denied, he said. Then call it a suggestion, she replied, and the line cut. Mara's squadron launched like bullets from a dying gun. 8 hawks streaked into the dark, thrusters cutting intermittent flares through the frozen void. Their hulls gleamed with residual frost, reactor temps barely above threshold. She led them in a wide arc, pushing their flight systems beyond safety margins. The alien vessels reacted immediately, 5 of them detached, flowing into pursuit with frightening precision. Squadron, break pattern, she ordered. Keep them guessing. No predictable vectors. Her wingman Sol Parn chuckled weakly over comms. Predictable died 5 minutes ago. The enemy ships accelerated without visible thrust, bending inertia like clay. They folded the distance in stuttering jumps, appearing and vanishing in rhythmic beats. Mara toggled EM flares and sensor ghosts, filling the void with noise. The aliens followed the decoys briefly. Then they adapted, shifting wavelength focus mid-pursuit. Their movement was no longer a chase, it was a correction. They're predicting us, Sewell said. Mara clenched her teeth. Then we stopped being predictable. She rolled her hawk into a full spin, cutting all power except momentum. For a heartbeat, she became invisible. Just a drifting piece of metal amid chaos. The aliens hesitated, their formation fracturing as they lost track. She reignited engines, firing point blank with rail lances. The slug struck one of the pursuers, shattering its outer geometry. For the first time, something broke and didn't immediately repair. Confirmed hit, she yelled. Something in their folding matrix collapsed. Copy, Aric's voice came through, ragged but alive. Transmit telemetry. That's the first crack we've seen. Auric turned toward Reyna. Record everything from Ibarra's feed. Analyze vector distortion pre- and post-impact. On it. She expanded the feed, isolating the moment of detonation. She disrupted their phase harmonics by colliding real space and folded space in the same instant. A paradox injection. In English. She hit them while they were mid-fold. Their geometry was undefined. Can we weaponize that? Not yet. But we can time it. In the reactor bay, Leon's voice broke through internal comms. Containment stabilizing barely. I reversed the polarity on the gravitic lattice. It's not heating yet, but it stopped freezing. Auric exhaled for the first time in minutes. Good work, Doctor. It's not good, she replied. We're running on 14% power. The core's bleeding entropy like an open wound. If they hit us again, they won't, he said. We'll hit first. Helios reinitialized systems one by one. Hull integrity 61%. Weapon banks online. Shield regeneration minimal. But the Titan was breathing again. The crew, exhausted and bruised, worked in practiced silence. Every console hum felt like a heartbeat returning to a dying body. Reyna brought up a tactical overlay. The aliens have shifted to triangulation. 3 groups, each tracking our energy signature. They're staying just beyond effective rail range. They're learning formation warfare, Arik said. From us. Imitating tactics? Maybe not tactics. Instincts. Leon appeared on the upper deck, suit still streaked with frost. If they're observing our responses, then every reaction teaches them more. We have to do something unexpected. Suggestions? She hesitated. We fake our own death. The bridge went silent. In the planning bay, holographic models of the Resolute Dawn shimmered under dim light. Leon outlined her plan. Collapse one of the core's magnetic tethers, simulate total singularity detonation, and flood space with gravitic debris signatures indistinguishable from catastrophic failure. If it worked, the aliens would assume the Titan had destroyed itself. If it failed, the ship would implode for real. Reyna stared at the model. You're asking us to flirt with annihilation. I'm asking us to use their curiosity against them, Leon said. They study patterns. They'll scan the wreckage. That's when we strike. Arik nodded slowly. A Trojan corpse. Mara's voice filtered in over comms. I like it. Creepy but clever. Reyna folded her arms. And what happens if they detect the deception? Then, Arik said, we die honestly instead of slowly. He looked at each of them in turn. The crew had stopped fearing death hours ago. Now they feared irrelevance, becoming just another mystery in the dark. Prep the sequence, he ordered. Leon's team disabled redundant safeties one by one. The reactor room pulsed with low-frequency hums, each one a warning that reality was being bent. Plasma arcs crawled across the containment rings. The singularity pair shivered, their mutual gravitation tearing at space like claws on glass. Field collapse in 40 seconds, Helios reported. On the bridge, Arik sat in his command chair. The lights dimmed, emergency bands glowing red. He felt the vibration in his bones. All hands brace. Mara's Hawks docked in formation around the ship, providing a screen of sensor noise. The alien fleet reading the anomaly converged. 30 vessels moved like sharks sensing blood. 20 seconds, Reyna said. Cut all active emissions, Arik ordered. Make us look dead. Leon's voice came through, steady now. Initiating gravitic bleed. Containment collapse in 3, 2, 1. The ship bucked as energy surged outward. Every screen went white. A massive wave of spatial distortion rippled across the void. From any vantage point, the Resolute Dawn seemed to explode, its core blooming into a silent, expanding ring of debris. Fragments of hull scattered into the dark, trailing frozen gas. The alien fleet halted. Scanners probed the expanding cloud. Then they advanced cautiously, fanning out to study the remains. Inside what appeared to be wreckage, the Titan's true body hid beneath a cloaking field, its emissions masked by the false debris. Crew worked in darkness, breathing recycled air and adrenaline. Reyna whispered, They're taking the bait. Through the viewports, ghostly shapes of the alien ships loomed larger, their geometry twisting under gravitational distortions. They moved like living sculptures of light, each pulse reflecting alien logic. One passed so close that its hull scraped the Titan's decoy plating. Hold, Arik whispered. Hold until they're all in range. Reyna's sensors flickered green. All targets locked. Fire. The gravitic lance roared to life from hiding, carving a crescent through the void. The beam tore through 3 vessels instantly, disintegrating them into ribbons of folded matter. The Titan emerged from its false grave like a reborn Leviathan, rail batteries spitting tungsten and light. Direct hits, Reyna shouted. Keep firing, Arik ordered. Don't give them time to adapt. The aliens reacted in disarray, their synchronization broken. Their folding maneuvers faltered as they attempted to recalibrate around debris and distortion. Mara's Hawks struck next, targeting crippled ships with pulse torpedoes. Explosions rippled through the dark. Real, visible explosions this time. But victory was a brief illusion. One of the alien ships emitted a blinding pulse. Every human sensor flared. Leon screamed over comms. They've mapped the field. They know it's a trap. The enemy formation recohered with terrifying speed. Their weapons flared, spatial pulses converging on the Titan's exposed hull. "Shields collapsing," Reyna shouted. "Core containment unstable again." "Return fire," Arik snapped. The Resolute Dawn shook violently as distortion waves pounded its armor. Hull decks ruptured. Dozens died before alarms could sound. In the hangar bay, a collapsing bulkhead crushed 2 Hawks mid-launch. Mara's voice came through ragged. "We're losing the outer line." Arik could feel the gravity fluctuating beneath his feet. "Leon, we need that core back online." "I'm trying," she yelled. "The field harmonics are desynchronized. If I push harder, it'll—" The rest was drowned out by a thunderous groan as the ship's spine flexed under stress. For a moment, Arik wondered if this was how extinction sounded. Then, amid chaos, something unexpected happened. The alien fleet hesitated, not from damage, but confusion. Their formations scattered irregularly, as though receiving conflicting data. Reyna saw it first on her scope. "They're losing coordination." Helios's voice returned, clearer now. "Signal interference detected within enemy network. Source: residual feedback from false death gravitic burst." Leon's realization hit like lightning. The simulation didn't just fool their sensors, it contaminated their link. They're networked by quantum resonance. Our fake detonation introduced chaotic phase noise. Arik's eyes hardened. "Can we amplify it?" "Maybe," she said. "If we invert the field again, use the core as a noise generator." "Do it." "Sir, that could destabilize the singularities permanently." He met her gaze through the comm feed. So could losing this fight. The engineering bay glowed blinding white as Leon rerouted the containment coils. The frozen lattice around the cores fractured into shards of light. She tuned the gravitic modulation ring to harmonic discord, a deliberate cacophony of space-time vibrations. "Engaging phase inversion," she said. The Titan trembled. Across the void, alien ships shuddered in response. Their folding drives misfired, tearing them momentarily between realities. Some vanished entirely, leaving only gravitational echoes. Others drifted uncontrolled, their perfect formations unraveling. Reyna whooped. "It's working!" Mara's surviving Hawks capitalized instantly, cutting through the crippled units. The alien fleet disintegrated into chaos, half fleeing, half burning. For the first time since contact, humanity had forced the unknown to retreat. But victory carried a price. Leon screamed as energy surged back through the conduits. "Containment breach! The noise feedback is overloading the cores." "Shut it down," Arik ordered. "I can't. It's self-sustaining." Helios' voice rose in synthetic alarm. "Core temperature escalating. Collapse imminent." On the forward screen, the remaining alien ships jumped to folded space and vanished. The field was clear, but the Titan was dying again, this time from within. Arik looked around the bridge at faces drawn and pale but defiant. "If we can't save the ship, we save the knowledge. Transmit everything to Fleet Command." Reyna's voice trembled. "Signal won't reach Mars through the interference." "Then we find another way." In the engineering bay, Leon stared into the blinding radiance of the twin cores. The freezing had reversed, replaced by violent overheat. The lattice screamed with energy. She could feel the vibration in her bones, like standing next to an awakening god. Jorah coughed behind her. "We can eject one core to stabilize the other." "Manual override only," she said. "That's suicide." Leon looked at the shimmering containment ring. "So is doing nothing." She keyed the intercom. "Commodore, I can keep one core stable if I eject the secondary. But someone has to stay behind to monitor phase alignment." A long silence followed. Then Arik's voice quiet. Acknowledged. She could hear it, the weight of command. The knowledge that he understood and wouldn't stop her. "Doctor," Reyna said softly. "Thank you." Leon smiled faintly. "Make it mean something." She turned off the comm and walked toward the manual control lever. Her gloved hand trembled only once. "Jorah, go," she said. "That's an order." When he hesitated, she looked at him. "You'll tell them how to finish this." He saluted, eyes wet, and fled the chamber. Leon grasped the lever and pulled. The secondary core tore free from its magnetic moorings, expelled through the ventral ejector. It streaked into the void, a star dying in silence. The feedback wave rocked the ship, but the primary core stabilized, its roar subsiding into a steady thrum. Helios reported, "Containment stable. Energy output at 38%. Arik closed his eyes. "Dr. Yao's last act bought us power. When the light steadied and the bridge fell quiet, only exhaustion remained. Hull temperature rising, shield lattice reforming, weapon banks idle. The crew looked out upon a battlefield of debris, alien wrecks drifting alongside human scrap. The first war between species had left no victors, only survivors. Mara's battered Hawk returned to dock, its hull charred. She stepped out, helmet in hand, eyes red. "We lived," she said. "Barely." Arik stared into the dark. "Then we make it count." Reyna brought up long-range sensors. "The aliens are gone. For now." "Not gone," Arik said. "Just learning." He turned toward the stars where they had vanished. "And when they come back, so will we." Outside, the frozen remains of the ejected core drifted silently, its surface pulsing faintly with alien energy residue. Within that dying ember, something stirred, faint and incomprehensible. The war was far from over. It had only evolved. The resolute Dawn limped through the void like a wounded predator refusing to die. Days had passed since the battle, but time aboard the Titan had dissolved into a single unbroken shift of repairs and recalibration. Half the crew worked in zero-G suits, welding armor over ruptured decks. The others scavenged what energy they could coax from the surviving core. The corridors smelled of coolant and burnt circuitry. Commodore Eric Vale watched from the bridge, as a thin halo of ice glistened across the viewport, the frost from Leon's final act still clinging to the ship's hull. Every decision he'd made since had carried her echo, the price of survival measured in human names. He'd ordered 50 funerals into the void. He'd stopped feeling each loss only because the pain never left. Reyna Solari approached, her uniform sleeves rolled, face pale but steady. "Communications array is functional again." Mars Command received the full combat data burst. They confirmed, "The aliens are calling the system Sol Fringe." "Calling it?" Arik repeated. "Intercepted translation patterns in their subspace emissions. They're cataloging sectors, mapping human space," Arik frowned. "So they're not just invaders. They're surveyors." Reyna's gaze held his. "And we're the experiment." In the flight bay, Mara Ibarra watched her remaining pilots test the rebuilt Hawks. The hangar was quieter now, stripped of its usual chatter. Rows of names had been carved into a bulkhead, those lost in the first contact. She ran a gloved hand across the etched metal. The grooves felt deeper each time she passed them. Sol Parn floated up beside her, his suit half-sealed, eyes hollow but alert. "Command says we're heading to Titan Base for repairs." Mara nodded. "We'll never make it under our own power. The core's barely pushing 30%. "Maybe that's the point," Sol said. "We limp home. Let the politicians see the blood. They'll finally take it seriously." She studied him. "You still think they need proof?" "They've never believed in monsters until the monsters come knocking." Mara looked at the distant curve of Saturn, its rings slicing through the dark like scars. "Then let's make sure we knock back." Dr. Lian Yao's absence haunted every deck. Her station in engineering had been sealed behind a transparent partition, now draped with a single piece of cloth, a field memorial. Helios maintained her voice pattern in system logs, a ghost that still answered queries about thermal capacity or reactor tolerances. Arik couldn't bring himself to erase it. When Fleet Command's encrypted transmission arrived, Arik gathered the senior officers in the ready room. The holographic feed resolved into Admiral Kerr's severe face, pale under the flicker of compressed data. "Commodore Vale, your report confirms non-human intent and aggression. The alien vessels you engaged are designated Entity Class Theta. You are now authorized for retaliatory operations." "Retaliatory?" Reyna asked. "With what fleet?" "We're the only one that's survived contact." "Not for long," Kerr said. "Earth and Mars shipyards are converting 6 dreadnoughts with Titan-class cores. But they need time, months." "You'll hold the line," Arik's jaw tightened. "We can't hold the line with half a ship. You won't be alone. Intelligence Division believes the aliens are using subspace relay nodes hidden in the Kuiper Belt. Destroying one could disrupt their network." Reyna leaned forward. "You're suggesting a deep raid?" "Yes," Kerr said. "We've triangulated possible coordinates from your battle telemetry. We need proof, Commodore, wreckage, data, anything we can study." Arik exchanged a glance with Reyna. "Understood. But you realize if those coordinates are wrong, they're never wrong," Kerr interrupted. "You're the spear, Vale. Humanity's watching again." The feed cut, leaving static in its wake. Mara exhaled slowly. "They talk like we're already legends." Reyna's tone was dry. "Legends usually die before the statues are built." 3 days later, The Resolute Dawn set course for the Kuiper Expanse. Navigation was treacherous, gravitic mines of ice and rock drifting in eternal twilight. The ship's sensors flickered constantly from interference. Mara's Hawks flew point, their hulls broadcasting low-level EM pulses to clear microdebris. Feels like flying through ghosts, Sol muttered. That's because it is, Mara said. This is where probes go to die. Arik remained on the bridge watching telemetry streams cascade across the holotable. The ship's faint radar sweeps painted the region with uncertain light. They'd already passed through zones of anomalous temperature gradients, residual distortion from the alien folding drives. Leon's data predicted that each fold left a trace, a scar in spacetime like oil on water. Following those scars, they found the source, contact, Reyna said softly. Bearing 048 by 21, mass signature irregular. It's big, Arik magnified the feed. A structure loomed ahead, a lattice of metallic rings orbiting a dark core, each segment pulsing faintly with blue light. It wasn't built, it had grown, coalescing out of geometry itself. The relay, Reyna whispered. That's their network hub. Helios confirmed. Subspace harmonics match transmission patterns from prior engagement. Estimated energy throughput equivalent to 5 Titan-class reactors. Arik studied it. If we destroy it, we cripple their coordination. Or wake something worse, Mara said through comms. We don't know what powers that thing. Reyna met Arik's gaze. Orders? He hesitated. Approach silent. No active emissions. Let's learn before we burn. They drifted closer, engines muted to whispers. The alien structure radiated calm menace, vast but eerily still. Streams of light pulsed across its surface in rhythmic intervals. Leanne would have called it beautiful, Arik thought. A living equation suspended in the dark. Picking up subspace traffic, Reyna said. Dozens of signals, all linked. It's like listening to neurons firing. Can we decrypt? Arik asked. Not language. It's topology, spatial communication. They're thinking through geometry, Helios interjected. Recommendation? Capture core sample for analysis. Surface proximity required. Arik nodded slowly. Mara, prepare a boarding unit. Minimal team, stealth insertion. Mara didn't flinch. Copy. Hawks ready. Her squadron approached the alien construct under cover of debris shadow. The closer they got, the less their instruments understood. Readouts fluctuated wildly. Time itself seemed to dilate. Mara's breathing slowed unnaturally, her heartbeats echoing longer than they should have. The structure distorted the rhythm of existence. Stay focused, she told her team. Lock formation and record everything. They reached the outer ring. Its surface was smooth but translucent, layers shifting like deep ocean currents. A soft hum vibrated through the hull. Sol's voice whispered, feels alive. Cut the chatter, she said, though her own throat was dry. She anchored magnetic clamps and initiated sampling. A drone extended a cutter beam, and the material reacted instantly. The surface rippled, absorbing the energy. Then a pulse shot back along the beam, slamming through the Hawk systems. EMP surge, Sol shouted. We've been made! The ring brightened. Segments unfurled like petals. Dozens of alien vessels, smaller than the warships but clearly kin, emerged from the structure, their forms flickering between dimensions. Mara to Dawn, we're compromised. Multiple contacts emerging, Arik's voice cut through the noise. Pull back. Cover fire inbound. Reyna launched suppression volleys, rail slugs streaking through the void. Some struck true, shattering drones. Others vanished mid-flight as space folded around them. The alien swarm poured outward, forming a living shield around the relay. Mara's Hawks banked hard, weaving through chaotic fire. Sol, on me! Full burn. They raced toward open space as the Resolute Dawn charged its main lance. Target the relay core, Arik ordered. Single shot. Charging, Reyna said. 10 seconds. Helios's voice warned. Energy return spike. Relay is reacting. The structure's rings rotated faster, creating a vortex of distorted light. Within it, something massive stirred, an inner sphere blooming open like an eye. Fire, Arik commanded. The gravitic lance struck dead center. For an instant, reality tore. The alien structure convulsed, collapsing inward. The explosion was silent but blinding, a ripple that shattered local space and flung debris for thousands of kilometers. Reyna shielded her eyes. Direct hit. Relay destroyed. Mara's voice came through weakly. We're clear. Minor damage. Arik allowed himself one breath. Helios, scan for residual transmissions. The AI hesitated. Signal detected, unknown origin. High energy burst preceding collapse. Destination, unknown coordinates beyond Sol system. Reyna's heart sank. They know where we are, Arik nodded grimly. And now they'll come for us. Back aboard, the crew worked in silence. The relay's destruction had cost them half their drones and 2 pilots, but humanity had struck back. Yet the mood was hollow. They'd sent a message to the stars, and it had been answered. Later, Arik found Mara sitting alone in the observation chamber, helmet beside her. Saturn's rings gleamed faintly in the distance. "You did well," he said quietly. She didn't look at him. "I lost Sol," he hesitated. "His hawk didn't make it out? Folded right in front of me. One moment there, then gone." Arik lowered himself beside her. He knew the risks. "I know." Her eyes were distant. "But every time we win, we lose pieces of ourselves." He looked at the stars. "That's how humanity's always survived, trading blood for time." She gave a hollow laugh. "You make it sound noble." "It's not," he said. "It's necessary." Fleet Command hailed them the next day. Admiral Kerr's face appeared again, lined with fatigue. "The data from your relay strike is invaluable. We've confirmed the aliens are operating from a centralized hub beyond Pluto's orbital plane. Command authorizes Operation Thorn. Strike their logistics base before they can regroup." Reyna frowned. "We barely survived one skirmish. You want us to go deeper? Your ship is the only one with combat-proven data. Reinforcements will rendezvous en route." Arik leaned forward. "You mean we're the bait again?" Kerr didn't deny it. "You've proven the aliens can bleed. We need to know if they can die." The feed ended. The silence that followed felt heavier than any explosion. The resolute dawn turned toward the outer dark once more. Repairs were temporary, morale thinner than air, but resolve hardened where hope faltered. Every crew member knew they were part of something larger now, an unrecorded chapter of human defiance. Reyna joined Arik on the bridge as they passed Neptune's orbit. "You ever wonder what they want from us?" she asked. Arik's gaze was fixed on the stars. "Understanding, maybe. Or dominance. Doesn't matter which." Leanne would have said it matters a lot, he nodded slowly. She would have. A low alarm interrupted them. "Proximity alert," Helios reported. "Massive subspace ripple ahead. Incoming signatures, multiple." "How many?" Reyna demanded. "Too many." The void ahead twisted into color. A fleet emerged. Alien ships larger than before, shapes fractal and shifting. Their hulls resonating like instruments tuned to dread. At their center was a colossal vessel, hundreds of kilometers long, its geometry bending starlight into spirals. Reyna whispered, "Gods, what is that?" Helios analyzed in eerie calm. Designation Entity Prime. Correlation with Relay Core Energy Signature 97%. Estimated power 50 times Titan class. Arik stood slowly. "All hands to battle stations." Mara's hawks launched before he finished speaking, engines blazing. "We've got your flank, Commodore." The bridge filled with controlled chaos. Systems came alive, alarms screaming. The alien fleet advanced in perfect formation, an orchestra of annihilation. Reyna glanced at Arik. "They learned our tactics." "Good," he said. "Then they'll understand what happens next." The first volley came like a sunrise, spatial pulses converging, shattering asteroids into vapor. The resolute dawn rolled, counterfiring with every weapon bank. Rail slugs streaked toward the enemy, vanishing into folded space. Explosions bloomed briefly, then vanished, swallowed by distortions. "Shields at 60. Reyna shouted, "Maintain formation." Arik barked. "Target the center, Prime." Mara's squadron swept through the enemy flank, launching torpedoes that disrupted their coordination. But for every alien ship destroyed, 2 more folded in. The battle stretched into eternity. Noise and silence, light and darkness intertwined. The Titan-class warship moved like a dying beast, every system bleeding but still striking back. When the alien flagship opened fire, the stars disappeared. A beam of sheer gravitational force cut through space, bending everything it touched. It grazed the resolute Dawn's side, shearing off 2 decks. Hundreds died in an instant. Structural integrity compromised, Helios warned. Arik's voice remained steady. "All units, focus fire on that weapon. Find me a weakness." Reyna's hands flew across the console. "Analyzing pattern?" The beam destabilizes before discharge, its draining mass from nearby space. "If we overload it mid-cycle, we can blow it apart," Arik finished. "Coordinate with the Hawks." Mara heard the command and smiled grimly. Copy that. Let's make them choke on their own god. She dove through the enemy lines, dodging folded ripples that tore reality around her. Her torpedo lock screamed green. Firing! Reyna synced the Titan's gravitic lance to her coordinates. The two attacks struck together, hawk torpedoes detonating as the lance carved through the alien flagship's charging core. The explosion was silent but colossal. Space folded inward, consuming the vessel. When light returned, half the alien fleet was gone, ripped away by their own weapons' implosion. Reyna gasped. We did it! Arik didn't smile. No, we survived another minute. The remaining enemy ships began retreating, their formation unraveling. But before they vanished, the Prime's dying signal pulsed once, broadcasting across every channel, every frequency. Helios translated the pulse, voice trembling for the first time. Message received. Observation complete. The words chilled the bridge. Reyna whispered, Observation? You mean? Arik's expression hardened. We weren't fighting a fleet. He looked into the dark beyond where the flagship had vanished. We were fighting their scouts. And as the stars realigned around the silence left behind, every soul aboard the Resolute Dawn understood. The real war hadn't even started yet. They called it Operation Thorn because someone in Fleet Command liked metaphors that cut both ways. To Arik Vale, the name felt like an admission that they were about to go where the skin was thinnest and hope it didn't bleed out. After the Prime's withdrawal and the relay strike, the Resolute Dawn was the only ship with the combat profile and the damage-hardened crew to attempt the next stage. A direct strike at the aliens' logistics lattice, the stitched network of hubs that fed their folding drives and coordinated their scouts. It was audacious and naive in equal measure. It was all they had. Arik sat in the planning room and watched the senior officers trace the operation across a hollow table. The models pulsed with time windows, trajectories, and kill zones. The mission would be a braid of vectors. Mara's flight wing would insert a stealth team to plant physical disruption charges at 3 peripheral nodes. Reyna's tactical arrays would hold the line and provide suppression fire while the Titan executed a timed gravitic burst to overload the network. Leon's engineering team would run a phase noise generator using the ejected core residue as a catalyst to desynchronize alien folding drives. And a convoy of converted cargo freighters would, under Elias Mbecki's oversight, beam a deliberate propaganda transmission, and attempt to force a political split in the alien hierarchy by broadcasting evidence that a scouting faction was being sacrificed by a more distant command. The stratagem was a patchwork built from desperation. Every move had a cost. Every clock tick bled them thinner. Arik felt that cost in his teeth as he listened to Leon argue with Reyes, the systems tech, about power limits. 38% sustained is a lie, she said. It's 38% if nothing else draws, and everything draws. If we feed the phase generator, we'll have 10 minutes before the containment wavers again. Reyna's hands hovered over the table. We get one burst, one shot. We must fracture their coordination long enough for follow-on strikes to dismantle the lattice. Mara, who had stood silent up until that moment, drove her fist into the palm of her hand. Then we make the most of that minute. Her face was a map of grief and hunger. I'll take the insertion. My pilots volunteer for the close runs. Arik looked at the faces around him. They were all volunteers. The ship had become a magnet for those who wanted to do something rather than wait. He could refuse and watch the alien network stitch back together, or he could accept and pray the math and nerve held. He chose nerve. He always had. Do it, he said. They staged the insertion near the belt of Kuiper fragments that acted like a curtain of dust and ice. The physical nodes were anchored to slow-moving dwarf bodies, buried under layers of alien geometry that warped local space. Getting to them required a ghost step. Cut emissive signatures to near zero, use Mara's hawks as wraiths, and land on points their sensors couldn't fathom. Each hawk carried a single-manned infiltration pod, compact, lethal, and without assisted extraction. Mara briefed her pilots in the cramped, humming bay. The men and women who answered her were young and thin around the eyes, faces sharpened by loss. Solparn had found something like steadiness and anger. Jorah, Leon's assistant, had stowed himself into a cockpit and refused to come out. He'd patched his seat with solder and prayer. Arik watched them and felt an old, brittle pride. You know the drill, Mara said. In-plant, go silent. The charges are calibrated for phase gap insertion. They'll splice the lattice, not blow the rock. We break the conversation, not the building. If the planet's idiots want to tear us to atoms for it, that's on them. There was a soft murmur of assent. They were all well aware that the charges required a human hand to arm. Autonomous detonators had been shown to be easy to confuse. The enemy adapted to machine patterns. People with fingers and fear were harder to algorithmically predict. Leon moved through the bay like someone visiting a graveyard. She packed a crate of phase modulators, an ugly, humming maze of superconductors and ceramic, and then she hooked herself into the network. "I'll be running the generator here on the ship," she told Arik. "When you see the first node go, I'll spit phase noise into their network. You get 15 seconds after my burst before their folding cohorts recalibrate. Use those seconds, and if you fail?" Reyna asked. Leon looked at the tactical officer with a softness that surprised Arik. "Then you'll have more than one resolute dawn to worry about." Jorah slid into Mara's second seat without permission and without argument. He was a technician who had watched his hands save the ship and knew for the first time he could use them to change fate. Arik did not stop him. They moved at night, though night in the Kuiper was a meaningless phrase for places where the stars had no day. Mara piloted them through wide corridors of fractured light and saw phantom ripples across the void. The first node sat like an embryo in a cavity of black rock. The Hawks cut silent trails of ion exhaust and coasted into the gravity well. They made landfall on something that should not have been able to hold a landing. The surface under the pod's feet flexed like skin, then firmed. The alien material swallowed their treads and then produced an opening, an aperture that was geometry rather than metal. Mara felt fingernails of cold down to her bones. She and Jorah left the Hawk and moved with the practiced slowness of those who had to be invisible to survive. The node was an altar of angles. Its surface pulsed in nested rhythms like a heart made of math. Mara's gloved hands worked the calibrator bolts with surgical speed. Jorah fed the charges through a conduit and whispered, "We're ghosts. Ghosts who will make them bleed," Mara said. They wired the last detonator and keyed the arming sequence. For a moment, an animal fear possessed Mara. She thought of Sol, of the kid's laugh before he was folded out of existence, and something like a promise rose inside her. "Come back to the Hawk," she told Jorah. He nodded, eyes bright. "You get us home." They ran. The charges detonated as planned. No flashy boom, just a sudden, brutal rearrangement of local spacetime. The node flickered, then shuddered into incoherence. Mara's comms sung a single staccato as Leon's phase generator began to sail its harmonic discord through the ether. A deliberate, ugly noise stitched into a war-quiet fabric. The alien net shuddered. Somewhere beyond sensors, algorithms hiccuped. It was the smallest thing and the largest. They exfiltrated under a curtain of static. Two of Mara's Hawks returned to the launch bay like battered birds. One did not. A fold had cut into a flight path and consumed a pilot without burst or flame. Sol was gone. Mara did not collapse into grief. There was no time for that. She sat with the absence like a wound and compressed it into focus. They still had 2 nodes left. Back aboard the Resolute Dawn, Arik listened to Elias and Mbeki, the liaison brought aboard weeks ago from the diplomatic corps. Elias was not a soldier. He had been a negotiator for a trade consortium on Earth before politics dragged him to the fleet. He looked older than his years and younger at the same time, with a face that made compromise look like an art. Arik had kept him as a token at first, someone to talk through contingencies with should they capture a live alien or need to broadcast a message to undo panic. But Elias had proven himself in small ways. He had a way of listening, which in those days was almost a weapon. "You're sure you want me sitting on this?" Elias asked, staring at the captured probe sitting in a containment field. The sensor drone, whose shredded hull they had recovered at the relay, still managed to pulse with faint non-human logic, like a dying mind thrumming constellations. "You're the only one who will talk to it without wanting to tear it apart first," Leon said. She had been inside labs for days, poring over the probe's emissions. She'd isolated a pattern in its harmonics that looked distressingly like syntax. It's emitting a coherent series of topological maps. Elias set his hands over the probe's field, palms flat, as if holding someone's heartbeat. He whispered something soft in a language no one else aboard understood and waited. He had been working for 48 hours when the probe changed. Its pulse stuttered and then reformed as if a memory had been dug up and threaded into the present. A single phrase repeated, not in words but in geometric tones that Helios could quasi-translate into an image. A great node, a chain of beacons, a council. Elias transcribed in hurried strokes. It says they are not a single polity. There is a core and then the scouts. The scouts do not always enjoy the same priority as the core. They said, his voice narrowed. They said the core sacrifices scouts to test. It's ritualized. They test, they observe, then they adapt. A silence settled over the lab like snow. The implication unspooled quickly. What the Resolute Dawn had been fighting wasn't a united front, but a system willing to sacrifice units for data. The probe, call it what they would, was offering them not just coordinates but motive. In exchange, it pulsed an image of a peripheral command ring where the scouts' oversight matrices anchored their fold drives. Coordinates aligned, a map unfolded. It ended with a pulse that felt like a plea. Elias looked up, pale. It wants to defect. The word tasted dangerous in the air. A defecting probe could be a trap. It could be a lure, an algorithm designed to feed disinformation. But it could also be honest, a fragment of something that had never had a name for mercy and now, in the smallness of a captured hull, seemed to have found the concept. Arik decided he would rather bet on truth than be guided by fear. We'll take it to the nodes, he said. If it's a trap, it dies with us. If it's honest, it's the only bridge we have. Elias set to work. He simulated a conversation, feeding the probe curated sequences that mimicked priority signals, and then, riskily, a human voice recorded in Leon's tonal patterns. The probe responded by emitting a tighter weave of coordinates, a lattice 20,000 kilometers beyond Pluto, a hub that their intelligence had not located. More disturbingly, it pulsed a protocol, a method to send a targeted appeal into the scouts' local mesh that might provoke hesitation rather than slaughter. You're asking it to show us the scalp of the beast, Reyna said quietly. Elias nodded. And to show us how to speak to it. The preparatory window closed like a trap. As the Resolute Dawn cruised deeper into the cold, Leon calibrated the phase generator around a single terrifying fact. They would have to inject the ejected core residue into the lattice to use it as a resonant seed. That meant a crew would have to approach the hub and feed the material into a conduit, while Mara's team made the insertion. The physics were elegant and cruel. An overloaded sequestration of mass in the node's field would force the folding drives into a saturating feedback, creating a localized collapse in their synchronization. In English, the lattice would hiccup in ways it could not adapt to, giving the human weapons a window. The plan left room for only one human variable, the person who would feed the seed. It was not a job that could be done remotely. The ejected core residue was volatile. It required a hand to orient it and a mind to time the injection. Leon volunteered. She had spent every waking hour with the singularities. She knew their language as well as anyone aboard. No, Arik said the moment she told him. You die. Leon's eyes showed no surprise. If I die, the ship still has a chance. If I don't, we all might die. Commands are made to be obeyed by people, Commodore. I obey the mission. Reyna stepped between them, practical and cold. If she doesn't come back, you will not let this operation become a funeral for nothing. Pull the strike. Arik found himself cruel and honest. Then we need a plan that survives without her. Leon smiled, a machine of sterile calm. You've had a week to plan without me. Now plan for after. She packed herself into a service platform 3 hours before the launch window. Jorah stood by her, too young for the things he had learned. If you come back, he said, voice small, I will recite that terrible poem you like. She laughed then, a sound that was both brittle and bright. Then you'll owe me a chapter. They mounted the platform and Mara's hawks carved the route towards the hub Elias had revealed. Arik watched them go like a man who had given his children away and hoped the universe would be gentle. Everything hinged on symmetry. Mara's insertion team threaded through corridors of frozen time, dropping charges at nodes and then folding back on themselves. Leon's platform reached the hub and found it alive and humming, larger than their models suggested. The surface dissolved around the platform as if curious, then accepted the residue. Jorah placed the seed while Leon tuned the generator. They had less than 2 minutes. They could see the shadows of the incoming ships through the hub's rippling surface like predators through fog. Leon's fingers danced over the generator as alarm screamed. Jorah was pale, sweat streaking his face with salt. We have to seed it, he cried. If we don't, seed and die, Leon said. Seed and maybe we buy the fleet time. On the bridge, Arik barked, abort the insertion and pull the hawks back. Mara fought her craft like a thing possessed. One of the hawks took a fold in the wrong place and collapsed to nothing. Another was struck by a pulse that turned its instruments into glass. The hub's beacon was loud and precise. The alien command sculpture had answered. In the engineering platform, Leon looked at Jorah. He had the look of someone deciding between selfish survival and the possible salvation of billions. He moved then with the terrible speed of youth, scooping the residual seed and racing toward the conduit. Leon reached for him and could not hold him. He keyed the feed manually, fingers trembling at the final gating. The platform shimmered as the seed took. The hub took the residue and spat. There was a soundless rip, a tearing of thought. The hub stuttered in its own logic. Then, impossibly, a network collapse began to propagate outward like a contagion. The folding cohorts trembled. It worked. At the same time the network hiccuped, the alien command launched a counterstrike and an electrical synapse cut through the field. Mara's last view was of Jorah's face lit by some sad, brilliant light, as the hub folded in upon itself and took him with it. He died in a map of light. The platform erupted in a field of paradox and swallowed the hub into a collapse that scavenged almost everything. The resolute Dawn felt a wrenching lurch through her keel as the physics of the sector shivered. For a breath it seemed they had won. Then Helios announced, voice low and stripped. Primary feed command surge. Counterlock established. Prime vector detected. Estimated arrival in 36 minutes. Aric's stomach dropped. They had broken a thing, and in breaking it had triggered something more centralized. The operation had cost a life and a node and bought them a fragment of advantage. It had also lit a beacon. They had made the enemy angry and focused. Elias stood on the bridge, chewing the inside of his cheek. I thought it was surrender, he said. I believed it could be reasoned with. Reyna's reply was bitter. Belief is a luxury when your ship is bleeding. Arik looked at the stars where the Prime would come and felt the cold of the Kuiper like a blade at his back. They had opened a wound in the alien network, and for a wonderful drunken moment blood had shown. But wounding an organism made it fight harder. The Prime's arrival meant more than an enemy fleet. It meant a machine that had been watching, learning, and cataloging. It would come not as a scout, but as a judge. As alarms wailed and the crew prepared to execute contingency protocols, Arik understood the new truth that would carry them into the next hours. Sometimes the only way to win was to be willing to lose everything, and accept that victory might come out of the thing you most feared. The Prime was on its way, and the resolute Dawn was not yet ready to meet it. They had fractured a lattice and given up a boy to the cold. The next move would require everything they had left: logic, courage, and the kind of sacrifice that was not strategic but fundamental. The stars beyond Pluto darkened, and the void shivered with the approach of something vast and patient. The resolute Dawn no longer drifted. It hunted. Repairs had stabilized the hull just enough to bear the strain of another confrontation. Every deck was stripped to essentials. No comfort, no redundancy, only power routed where it could burn brightest. As the alien Prime fleet advanced from beyond the Kuiper fringe, the Titan-class warship gathered the last shards of human will into a single strike pattern. Arik Vale watched the tactical map unfold like a chessboard carved out of gravity wells. Helios overlaid predicted vectors in cold blue lines that bloomed into an intricate lattice of intersecting arcs. Enemy contact in 9 minutes, Reyna Solari reported, her voice low but steady. 37 confirmed vessels, 1 central mass, Prime signature. Any readings on its weapon arrays? Gravitic anomalies consistent with singularity shear. Range unknown. Power output catastrophic. Arik's jaw flexed. Then we stay unpredictable. In the flight deck, Mara Ibarra's hawks were prepped to launch in staggered wings. Their armor plating gleamed from hasty repairs, patched with alloy scavenged from destroyed drones. She moved through her pilots, checking each helmet seal by touch. The hangar air smelled of lubricant and ozone. This isn't survival, she told them. This is disruption. We hit, we bleed them, we make them look the wrong way long enough for the Dawn to finish what we start. No one answered. They knew what that meant. The hawks were decoys and knives in the same breath. At the core decks, Leon's phase generator pulsed with dangerous life. The surviving engineers had rebuilt it into something new, a gravitic resonance amplifier, able to scatter enemy targeting by modulating the vacuum itself. Its runtime was measured in minutes. Its failure would melt half the ship. Reyna coordinated with the generator team. We'll synchronize the burst with our rail salvo. If we blind them during our opening strike, we might buy 30 seconds. 30 seconds is eternity, Leon muttered. Helios cut through their tension. Incoming fold distortion. Prime has exited subspace. The bridge dimmed as the display magnified. The enemy flagship filled the view like a wound in reality. It was less a vessel than an equation given form. Rings of obsidian matter rotating around a sphere of impossible darkness. Smaller escorts orbited it, each shedding veils of light that folded and reknit space in repeating pulses. The formation advanced without thrust, warping the void ahead of it like surfacing leviathans. Mara's comm pinged. Aric's voice was ice. All wings launch. The hawks erupted from the dawn's ventral bays in streaks of silver fire, fanning across the black. Their emissions were masked under the phase generator's first pulse. To alien sensors, the space around them shimmered into static. Form Delta Lattice, Mara ordered. Weapons cold until mark. They cut through the debris field that orbited Pluto's outer rim, using the tumbling ice to hide their approach. Behind them, the resolute Dawn burned sideways into position, her thrusters bleeding orange ion trails that glimmered like embers. Reyna's hands danced over her console. Primary rails loaded. Gravitic lance charged to 70%. Auric nodded. Fire control free. The Dawn unleashed hell. 4 rail batteries spat tungsten slugs at a fraction of light speed. The gravitic lance followed, a spear of compressed space-time that twisted everything it touched. The projectiles crossed millions of kilometers in seconds. They struck the Prime's forward screen. 3 escorts disintegrated instantly, their hulls unraveling into filaments of molten geometry. The alien fleet responded as one organism. Dozens of pulses flared, converging on the human formation. They weren't beams but distortions, waves that bent light into ripples. Where they passed, matter screamed, shields dropping to 60. Reyna called, keep the generator cycling. Auric barked. Leon's team overcharged the amplifier. The phase noise spilled across the void, scrambling alien telemetry. For 31 seconds, chaos reigned. Mara used those seconds like a scalpel. Her hawks dove into the enemy's flank, weaving through collapsing pockets of folded space. She targeted a carrier node near the Prime's dorsal ring. Lock tone, she said. Sol's replacement wingman Kiro answered. Tone locked. Fire. 6 torpedoes streaked forward, trailing plasma tails. They impacted the carrier's hull, an explosion that flowered silently, flinging fragments across the formation. The carrier's resonance field flickered. Its escorts faltered in their rhythm. Target disoriented, Helios confirmed. Reyna seized the opening. Commodore, I can thread a lance shot through that gap. Do it. The second gravitic lance hit like a god's hammer. The energy beam punched through the carrier and struck the Prime's outer ring. For the first time, the alien flagship reeled. Damage confirmed, Reyna said, disbelieving. They're vulnerable, but vulnerability was not defeat. The Prime's outer ring split apart, revealing an inner core of shifting crystal that spun faster, until it flared white. Brace, Auric shouted. A gravitational wave slammed the resolute Dawn. The hull screamed. Crew were thrown from their stations. 2 decks buckled. Containment fields breached, Helios warned. Compensating. Mara's hawks tumbled. Inertial dampers overloading. I'm hit. Stabilizing. The wave passed, leaving silence and flickering stars. Reyna coughed blood onto her console. Structural integrity at 40%. 1 more pulse like that and we're atoms, Auric straightened. Then we won't give them a second shot. He ordered a 3-axis assault. Hawks to draw fire, the Dawn to execute a hard burn beneath the Prime's equatorial plane, and Leon's generator to unleash a final overdrive burst timed with the gravitic lance. It was madness, but in war, timing was sanity. Generator ready, Leon reported. If we run it at this amplitude, it'll cook the core. Auric's reply was calm. Cook it. Mara's voice crackled over the channel. We're not getting out of this, are we? No, Auric said. But they won't either. She laughed once, short and bright. That'll do. The resolute Dawn dove beneath the Prime's shadow, thrusters roaring. Alien escorts swarmed in pursuit, folding and unfolding in dizzying loops. Railguns fired continuously, shredding through the swarm. The ship's hull glowed with frictionless heat, its armor molten at the edges. Inside, crew members fought fires with magnetic foam, sealing ruptures with whatever materials held air. Smoke drifted through the command deck. Every system screamed. 2 minutes to firing position, Reyna said. Helm, roll 30 degrees port, Auric ordered. Keep us under their axis. Mara's hawks flanked above, hammering the escorts with micro-torpedoes. Her HUD blinked red with proximity alarms. They're everywhere! Then don't miss, she said to herself, and armed her final payload, a singularity mine scavenged from the Titan's munitions bay. She dove toward the Prime's lower ring, sensors blinding with feedback. Her hand hesitated only once before she released the mine. It drifted silently, blinking once, then detonated. The explosion wasn't light, it was absence. A localized gravity collapse ripped through the Prime's lower hull, tearing one of its massive rings free. The alien flagship convulsed, its formation fracturing. Impact confirmed, Helios intoned. Auric's knuckles whitened. Now! Leon triggered the generator. The Resolute Dawn became a beacon of chaos. The phase field erupted outward, scattering space-time like sand. Alien ships flickered, lost targeting, collided. For a brief, breathtaking moment, the battlefield was human again. Fire the lance, Auric roared. Reyna slammed the trigger. The gravitic lance fired one last time, its beam twisting through the Prime's wounded heart. The inner sphere cracked, bleeding radiant matter. The light was blinding. Direct hit. Cheers erupted, too soon. The Prime's remains didn't explode outward. They collapsed inward. A black maw opened where its core had been. The gravity well swelled, devouring wreckage, light, everything. The Resolute Dawn was caught in the tide. Reverse thrust. Reyna screamed. Engines unresponsive. Helios answered. We're being pulled in. On the flight deck, Mara watched stars bend and vanish. Her surviving hawks strained at maximum burn. Commodore, we're trapped. Auric stared into the consuming darkness. Helios, vent the reactor. Full discharge. That will do it. The Titan's singularity core roared, ejecting a surge of raw energy. The shockwave slammed into the collapsing vortex, momentarily counteracting its pull. The Dawn lurched free, tumbling end over end. Half the alien fleet wasn't so lucky. They vanished into the void, consumed by their own creation. Silence followed, deep and wrong. Every instrument flickered dead. Gravity stabilizers failed. The ship drifted. Reyna's voice broke the quiet. We're alive. Leon's reply was faint. The generator's gone. Core output at 3%. We have nothing left. Auric closed his eyes. Then we hold position. Count the living. Mara's remaining hawks docked manually, battered beyond recognition. Of 12, 4 returned. She stumbled into the hangar, helmet cracked, blood on her cheek. Tell me it stayed dead, she rasped. Reyna didn't answer. The tactical display flickered once, then stabilized. In the distance, a faint signal pulsed from the debris field. The same frequency as the Prime's resonance, weaker but deliberate. Sir, Helios said quietly. Something survived. Auric's voice hardened. Lock onto it. A fragment of the Prime, its core shard, drifted slowly toward the outer rim, trailing faint energy signatures. Within that shard, sensors detected movement, architecture forming itself anew. Reyna whispered, They're rebuilding. Mara's fists clenched. After all that, Auric said. Because that's what intelligence does. It adapts. He turned to the bridge crew, faces drawn and hollow but unbroken. Then we learn faster. He looked out at the distant shard. Transmit coordinates to Fleet Command. Tell them the first battle's over. The war just began. In the following hours, the Resolute Dawn floated amid wreckage, her hull glowing faintly under distant sunlight. Crew tended to the wounded, patched life support with salvaged conduits, and watched the slow resurrection of their enemy across the stars. Helios replayed the battle logs quietly in the background, voice subdued. Casualties 734. Remaining crew 268. Reactor stable at minimal output. Auric stood alone at the viewport. The reflection staring back at him looked older, stripped to intent. He thought of the word Kerr had used before, retaliation. That had been a lie. What they'd done wasn't retaliation. It was recognition. The moment when prey stopped running and decided to make the hunter bleed. Behind him, Reyna approached, limping slightly. Fleet Command received our data. They're deploying the new Titans. We bought them time. Time, Auric echoed. That's what we always buy. She nodded toward the viewport. They'll need a name for this one. For history. He stared at the faint pulse of alien light in the dark. Call it what it was, he said. The day we learned how to hurt gods. The glow from the Prime's remains intensified, swelling into a new dawn across the black. And as alarms began to whisper once again, the Resolute Dawn turned her broken hull toward the light, engines flaring weakly, ready to face whatever came next. The Resolute Dawn drifted at the edge of dawnlight, half dead, half immortal. Its engines barely held alignment, and every deck carried the scar of fire or frost. But the ship's name had become something more than designation. It was a promise whispered across the fleet. In the month since the Prime's collapse, humanity had changed. Earth's shipyards burned around the clock, Mars had become a foundry, and even the outpost moons bled steel and code. 6 new Titan-class warships stood ready, their hulls forged from the Dawn's battle data and the remnants of alien wreckage. Each bore a singularity core tempered against freezing entropy. Each carried the same doctrine: endurance is intelligence weaponized. And at the heart of the fleet, the resolute Dawn led them still, scarred, ancient, and utterly unwilling to die. Commodore Arik Vale stood at the command viewport, watching the relay stream of the war's first coordinated offensive. They were calling it Operation Aegis Fall, a direct strike at the alien central lattice. A structure so vast it shimmered across 2 astronomical units, its geometry constantly rewriting itself.